Pete Carroll was hired as the Seahawks head coach in 2010. I started covering the league full-time really in like 2012. And one of the first things I got to do when I started covering the NFL as my main focus at Grantland is I went to see the Seahawks play the Niners. It was week 2 of the 2013 season. So the 2012 Seahawks, they went to the playoffs with Russell Wilson. They were a good team, and you could kind of feel that something was building. And I had never been to a game at CenturyLink before, and I had never really been to Seattle before. And I'll never forget that day. I'll never forget walking into the stadium. I'll never forget how everything around the stadium felt. And I will never forget what that building was like in that time watching those teams. Mm-hmm. And it was a perfect marriage of fan base, energy, and what those teams felt like. Yeah. You cannot exaggerate. You cannot overstate how fucking cool the 2013 Seattle Seahawks were. With Cam Chancellor, Marshawn Lynch.
The first thing
Earl
you say
Thomas.
is Cam Chancellor, because that's exactly what you picture.
That's exactly what you picture. Bobby Wagner was in his second year there. Yes. Michael Bennett, Cliff Averill. They just had all these guys like, that is incredible. They had the uniforms like recently refreshed. There was just something about them. And the fact that he did that, he created the coolest team in football, a team that in a lot of ways pretty much, along with the Patriots, defined that decade. They were the best team in the league by DVOA 4 years in a row. They were one play away from winning back-to-back Super Bowls. Doing that after doing what he did at SC, like that man's legacy is unbelievable in what he has accomplished in 2 different stops in 2 different sports over a 20-year period.
Yeah, and when he came from USC, that was interesting. The Seattle kind of like, because they did 1 year of Jim Mora, I believe. Jim Mora Jr.
I think so.
Like,
yeah.
1 year of it. And then just like, nope, reset. Pete Carroll, you get, and again, I'm going to use the phrase carte blanche to do what you want, because they gave him all the titles and everything. But I thought something signified that Pete was different, that Coach Carroll, I don't know him, but Coach Carroll was different, was when he had that first round selection, he took Earl Thomas over Taylor Mays, who was his safety at USC, who everyone was like, oh, they're going to draft a safety.
That's right.
There's his guy right there.
Think about that now, just how different those 2 players are.
Oh my God. Well, one's basically an outside linebacker, and the other is like the most dynamic safety in our recent memory. That was, I was like, oh, all right, that's interesting. I remember that. That was just like a moment to me, because it was like, okay, you're not just what I thought what most of these college guys do, because that was a moment too. And I remember reading an article like, is this the trend? The college guys are taking over the league, Harbaugh, Carroll, because they're used to the limited practice hours from the new CBA. That was the big thing too. And maybe there's something to it. Yeah. And I think his money ball too, and maybe, sometimes the players dictate what the coverage gets to, but was, finding kind of his island of misfit toys. And I think he described them as that. Bobby Wagner's a little shorter. Maybe the weight wasn't all the way there, but he had long arms and he was fast. Richard Sherman, long arms, former receiver. Interesting, very smart. Cam Chancellor is seen as a tweener. Is he a linebacker? Is he a safety? And then, of course, Earl Thomas was really a converted corner and everything, and ended up being just incredible at safety. But he just found all these guys. They all
fit the role so perfectly.
So perfectly.
Like when you envision what the defense is and you picture the players who fit the defense, you couldn't come up with a better collection of talent.
The Bears cover 2 and the Bucks cover 2 era. Those, and then this Legion of Boom cover 3 man era. Like that, all the guys are perfect. Richard Sherman's only on this side. All the defensive linemen are all these 6 to 8 sack guys. They're all good, just twisting, and they're all kind of tweeners. They found a new version of tweener. And when they came in with that defense, and someone asked Dan Quinn, okay, what's the principle? What do you base out of? Well, he goes, well, we're a 4-3 with 3-4 principles.
Yeah.
And then that was the personnel they use, is tweeners everywhere. But
Red Bryant. Remember how they used Red Bryant in those teams? And then so they had
Mm-hmm.
Red Bryant, who was like this huge 320-pound defensive end, essentially. And then they had Chris Clemens on the other side. So they just had such different, unique body types and the ability to deploy them in those hyper-specific ways. That was that defense. And then it became the thing that everyone in the league chased for 10 years.
Yes. They tried to find all these tweeners and all these, all the corners have to have 32 inches or longer arms. And it's like, yeah, they also have to be twitchy too. Like they actually have to be able to play. No, everyone was chasing that type. Why wouldn't you? You only have to run one coverage the entire game, and our guys just dominate no matter what. I've told this story before, but when they came in to the personnel department, they're like, hey, these are the types of players that we like. And they showed Bobby Wagner and then Earl Thomas. It's like, oh, got it. Yeah, there's Earl Thomas sweeping guys from the post, like coming down, sprinting down, just taking out running backs at the line of scrimmage, and then running from numbers to numbers in the post. And then Bobby Wagner's running with the receiver 30 yards deep. It's like, yeah, okay. But I remember this was a big thing was that Legion of Boom era. They had 1 year where their 90-man roster got cut down to 52 or 53. And every guy that they cut or waived got picked up by another team.
Yeah.
And
they did such a great job of identifying talent during those times as well. And guys that were cheap too.
Yep. It was all about competitiveness. It was different than, toughness is a part of that, but they found their guys that worked for them. That's just be competitive. Every practice is a war. Every game is a battle. We're going to go at it. And it was awesome. It was palpable when you watch that team.
There's a story I read in college. It was early in college, and this was when I was in journalism school, and I loved big, flowery profiles because that's what I wanted to do, And J.R. Morginger, who's a very famous sports writer and just journalist in general, he wrote a story for Los Angeles Magazine, and it was called 23 Reasons Why a Profile Pete Carroll Does Not Appear in This Space. And I loved it. It's a non-traditional way of telling it, and it's really gimmicky, but the writing was beautiful. And he was talking to Pete Carroll about his time at SC and then his time with the Patriots and what he learned from that time in the Patriots and why he carried himself a certain way now. And I'll never forget this. There was a line in the story, and it said, "I've already been dead. You can't kill a dead man." And if you look at the way that Pete Carroll has approached his job, and if you think about just the essence of Pete Carroll over the last 15 years and how we understand him as an NFL coach, that's it. That is a man who was already dead and came out on the other side. Mm-hmm. And how that dripped back into what the Seahawks were and what the Seahawks felt like for so long, it was undeniable. Yeah. And again, kind of getting to a place where, okay, why is it time to move on? Always compete is great when you win 9 games when you're supposed to win 6 games like they did last year. It's not as good when you win 9 games when you're supposed to win 11 like they were supposed to this year. And I think that there are going to be a lot of misguided postscripts to the Pete Carroll era. People are going to talk about his failure to adapt and his failure to innovate and his failure to kind of push forward. He tried. They tried to on defense. They were trying to get there. Just never quite worked. They never found the right personnel. They never found the right formula. And I understand getting to a place, if you're John Schneider, if you're Jody Allen, and if you're Pete Carroll, and saying, okay, we did what we could. It's time. And now they move on to their next stage. And I don't know what that looks like, but I think, again, this is a pretty decent job with some decent players on the roster and an organization and a general manager that has some skins on the wall and has been successful.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's a huge pivot point. I thought Pete was going to have maybe one more year after this, like just privately, kind of like
I wouldn't have been surprised.
The timeline was maybe one more year, and then that was it. And before they kind of went out, and just like you said, they were trying stuff on defense. They tried to get players. They tried, some tweaks to use this personnel correctly. And it just, again, it was the bad way of Island of Misfit Toys. It didn't just quite get there. You just said everybody fit that defense perfectly in the Legion of Boom days. Now it's like, yeah, but he shouldn't be doing this. He shouldn't be playing the pass. And then that's just what happens sometimes. You just don't have the horses, even if you do love. I don't know. I think the modern Pete, modern being like the last couple of years, post Russ Pete, obviously, but this is tied to, Geno Smith. Just his getting the faith into Geno and having Geno have confidence to rip those throws. That just speaks to what he does. It seems from an outsider, that's what all it does is he gets these guys. Are they perfect? No, but he gets them to play the best versions of themselves.
How powerful it is to have somebody believe in you.
It's unbelievable, dude.
It's such a small thing, but when someone sits there and looks you in the eye, like, I think you can do this. You know how powerful that shit is. And with him, it never felt fake. It never felt like a veneer. It never felt like something he was putting on. And that's why I think his players bought into it for as long as they did. And how different that personality is from the hooded guy in New England and all the games he wanted. These two guys stepping away at the same time, being the same age, and their stature within the sport during my 10, 12, 13 years that I've done this. It's just a fascinating contrast.
And the teams that they're involved with, how many times they overlap.
They were ships in the night. I mean, he was 2 years early.
It's crazy, man. It does feel, again, I feel like I've talked more about being in my 30s on this show than I have in real life. But seriously, it's like this was a big moment. It really felt like that chapter closing and tying in with Coach Saban. It's just like, wow.